Raise your hand if you have gone to your OB or your fertility doctor and were left with being told, you just need to lose weight to get pregnant. Okay, now your neighbors are looking around like, why aren't they raising their hand in the middle of nowhere? Raise your hand if you've been told your diet doesn't even matter when you're trying to conceive. How can both of these be true? Today, we're going to dive into how God has given us a medicine cabinet full of healing through food. I'm going to start us off just by reading in Genesis 1:29. It says, God also said, look, I have given you every seed-bearing plant on the surface of the entire earth and every tree whose fruit contains seed. This will be food for you. God has given us his food, the food that we grow from the ground and from the trees to nourish our bodies. And what does that look like? A lot of it looks like plant-based proteins and fruits and vegetables and all of these foods that contain nourishing vitamins and minerals that are going to help support our fertility. So in this episode, we are going to dive into just how you can do that, what needs to be the priority really, and how mainstream is kind of wrecking it for us and maybe harming our fertility in the process. God designed your body for fertility, but when the journey to parenthood feels like a heartbreaking mystery, it's so easy to feel lost. I'm Dr. Trisha, a nurse practitioner and fertility consultant who's been where you are. That's why I created Fertility by Design, where faith meets science to empower you with real solutions, holistic healing, and biblical encouragement. You are not alone. Your fertility is not broken. So let's walk this journey together. So I had a client who came to me and she was told that she just needed to lose weight and then she'd be able to get pregnant. And she thought, okay, awesome. But then when it came to losing weight, no one told her how. No one taught her about protein and macros and the nutrients that her body needed for fertility. No one taught any of this to her. They simply just told her to lose weight. And here's the other side. She'd been trying everything. She'd tried keto. She'd tried cutting a ton of calories. She tried eating low-fat, healthy foods. But here's the deal. No one taught her how to use real foods to nourish and heal her body. She just ended up living in this world of restriction, and then it didn't work. And then she would go right back to what she knew previously because no one had taught her otherwise. So she wasn't being lazy. She wasn't undisciplined. She wasn't, the word that we use in traditional medicine is the patient is being uncompliant. She wasn't being uncompliant. She was just misinformed and given no further direction than just lose weight. Most of us don't know what we don't know, and we're not learning the right things from mainstream media. I know growing up, for me, when I was in like my teens, 20s, everything was low fat, low fat, low fat, low fat. And I still ate a lot of things that were in the middle of the grocery store because they were called low fat and healthy. And here's the deal. Low fat processed foods is still processed food. We are going to be way better off by eating a whole food than we are a processed food. So what is a whole food versus a processed food? Well, a processed food is going to have probably 5 or more ingredients, and it needs a nutrition label to be able to identify like what it is. Whole food does not need a label. A piece of chicken is a piece of chicken. An apple is an apple. An orange is an orange. A carrot is a carrot. Those are whole foods. So when we're making our meals, now you're not hearing me say 100% of the time. You're hearing me say life is balanced. But the majority of the time, preferably 80-20, you want to focus on whole foods. So building your meals from whole foods doesn't have to be super complicated. It can be really, really simple. We'll dive into that in another episode, but it doesn't have to be super complicated. So that's great, right? Whole foods. Okay, well, what then? Really, the first thing that I tell the majority of my clients to focus on is not all of the macros. I simply have them focus on protein and fiber. Here's why. Protein are really the building blocks of everything we do. It's how we create energy for our body. We need protein. Protein is one of the most under-eaten macros, especially from women, because we just don't get enough. We're not eating foods that have a lot of protein. We're not sure what foods do have protein. We think the foods we're eating have more protein in them than they really do. One of the most common things I see is people having 2 eggs for breakfast and thinking they're eating enough protein. Well, an egg only has about 6 grams of protein. So you're really only getting about 12 grams of protein there, where we want you to be hitting closer to 30 grams in the morning for breakfast. Ideally, the majority of my clients, I recommend fall somewhere between 90 to 120 grams of protein. That's more if you are heavily training, doing a lot of strength training, working out with intensity, then that needs to increase because our demand on our body is increasing. We need protein for healthy hormones. If we're not fueling our body with what it needs, then the rest of the things cannot do what they need to do. Fiber is really important because our gut microbiome needs good fiber to be able to keep that microbial diversity, keep our hormones healthy, keep our insulin in check, keep everything functioning the way that it's supposed to, our metabolic health, our body's ability to decrease inflammation. All of that depends on those microbes thriving. And if we don't feed them fiber, it's not going to happen. So those are the first 2 recommendations I make to most of my clients. Then we talk about how do you even build a balanced plate? A good rule of thumb for plate balancing is that you're going to want half of it to be protein and you're going to want a quarter to be a vegetable or a carbohydrate of some sort, and then the other portion to be some sort of healthy fat. That's a good way to easily get in all of the macros that you need in an appropriate amount. The other thing is vegetables, starchy and non-starchy vegetables, we're counting as carbohydrates. We want to try to get as many whole food sources of carbohydrates as possible, staying away from those ones that are in the center of the grocery store and using them just here and there as needed. So when we're doing this plate balancing, that takes a lot of the pressure off tracking and just focusing on balancing your plate. Sure, I think there is definitely a place for counting macros and tracking macros, but when you're first starting out and you're really just trying to focus on nourishing versus restriction, that's a big mindset shift. Many of us have for years focused on restriction, and really we're trying to switch to nourishment and nourishing the body. So protein, 120 grams, fiber, somewhere between 35 to 45 grams of fiber. Here's a little caveat on fiber. We don't want to increase from 10 grams of fiber to 35 grams to fiber in one day because you're going to feel horrible. You're not going to tolerate it very well. It's a slow increase. So if you have not been eating a lot of fiber foods, you take what I call a fiber audit, track how many grams of fiber you're hitting in a day naturally, slowly increase that by 5 every couple of days to see how your body tolerates it. Now, if your body is not tolerating foods with fiber or fruits and veggies and things like that, that's another problem. And that's also probably affecting your fertility. That needs further testing. We need to look into that deeper with GI map testing and get a good picture and snapshot of what's going on in the microbiome to see why you're not tolerating those foods. Probiotic is not going to fix that, honey. Okay, then we have our fruits and vegetables. You should be eating tons of fruits and vegetables. Right now it's summer. There's so many yummy fruits and veggies in season. These are powerhouse packed with antioxidants and the nutrients that your fertility needs. Fruits especially are polyphenols that have strong antioxidant properties that are going to bind with any free radicals in your body and get rid of the excess inflammation happening that could be harming your fertility. Lots of fruits and veggies. Not to mention, a lot of these are prebiotic fibers that are going to help feed the gut microbiome, like your raspberries. Those are a really good one. You can eat one of those raspberry containers in a sitting and get a good 8 grams of fiber. So there you go. Spend all of your hard-earned cash on fruit this week. Let's go back to my client that I was talking about before. When we focus less on restriction and more on just nourishing her body with these foods that we knew her body needed to be able to prioritize procreation, what happened was magical. She had not had a cycle prior. Her cycle returned. 3 months after her cycle returned, she was pregnant. She now has a healthy baby and she is feeling so much better. Of course, some weight loss came along with that. But what happened was her body got what it needed and was being nourished with what it needed to have, instead of the restriction that was happening before and still not eating the right foods, but restricting calories. And instead, she was just focusing on nourishing her body with what it needed. And the rest kind of fell away on its own. We didn't talk about cutting. We didn't take anything specifically off the table. We talked a lot about balance. But as you begin to give your body what it needs, what God made our bodies to use for fuel and for procreation, it's amazing how quickly things happen. So food is not just fuel, it's really medicine. And if you are just tired because it feels like your body is broken, it is really time to lean into nourishing it the way that God designed it to thrive. So don't chase perfect. We're going to embrace balance. But now, hopefully, you feel like you have a little bit of a better understanding of what that looks like versus being told nutrition doesn't matter or just lose weight. So hopefully you feel like you can walk into this now with a more clear guidance. You know what a whole food is now. You know why it's so important to nourish versus restrict, and really just unlock that healing potential of food as medicine the way God gave you on your plate. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope this information has blessed you. If it has, please share this with a friend. If you have any further questions, please let me know. You can find me on Instagram. You can send me an email, or you can join our free Fertility by Design Facebook community. Also wanted to tell you guys about our new membership option that is really going to unlock so much potential for your fertility journey. You may be listening to this and thinking, okay, great, Whole Foods, awesome, got it. But every time I try to do something like this, I always fall off the wagon. I start off strong and then I just give up. Or maybe you are the only person doing it around you, and so it just feels way harder than it should be. This membership is for you. We are doing monthly group calls. We are sending out monthly meal plans, devotionals, and just encouragement in a like-minded community to be able to support you and get you where you need to go on your fertility journey. So if this is something that you've been looking for, if you are ready to join this community and get the structure and the guidance that you need, definitely check the link in the show notes. We would love to have you join us. That's it for today's episode of Fertility by Design. Subscribe so you never miss an episode, leave a review to help more couples find hope, and share this with a friend who needs encouragement on their fertility journey. Need even more support? Let's connect. Find me on Instagram at Trisha Zehrung for faith-filled fertility guidance, real solutions, and a community that just understands. Remember, your fertility is not broken. Your body is beautifully and wonderfully designed, and God's plan is always perfect. I'll see you next time.